how could I detox effectively if my liver is all congested with liver flukes? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing that I intuitively felt a hit just now that's so important to say to the viewers. I've been a green juice slugger and a salad twice a day eater, an intermittent faster, a yoga practitioner, a gym enthusiast, outside, like I live a pure, clean life. If that's happening to me, don't think, wow, she's really sick. I highly recommend you look in the mirror and see where you could be looking to help yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Trinity podcast, where we interview top holistic experts and bring you natural solutions for modern day wellness. Let's get started with your host, Dr. Jacqueline.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining the Wellness Trinity podcast. I'm Dr. Jacqueline from thewellnesstrinity.com, where we provide natural solutions for modern day wellness. Today, we are going to discuss, is environmental toxicity weakening your immune system? Just a little disclaimer before we get started. What we discuss in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you do with the information is to be used at your discretion, as the recommendations are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So this episode was sponsored by CellCore Biosciences. Creating supplements that work is what they do, and restoring hope and health is who they are. I have been on phase 3 of the Parasite protocol. Actually, it's a whole complete detox protocol, but parasites are heavily centered in this protocol, and phase 3 dives a bit deeper. We see phase 1 in phase 2 and phase 3, and you're getting rid of bigger bugs. And let me tell you, it works. And then para 3 is what you see in phase 3, and then you start working on the more systemic and smaller bugs that can be in different places in your body. So I just want to give you that little nugget. It's amazing, and it will take everything to a whole nother level when you get those little parasites out, and bigger ones too. If you're interested, then go to CellCoreBiosciences.com and get a wholesale account if you are a practitioner. And for the general public, if you're just curious about the whole detox protocol, then go to thewellnesstrinity.com/CellCoreDetox. So today I have Carol Egan on the show, and I actually work with her at CellCore, and we are both business development area sales managers, and it has been amazing working with her and seeing what she's doing. She's been hosting this Immune Strong event, and it turned into a detox, and I just love her work. I also was on her show, and on her summit, I should say, and she just really interviewed the most incredible people on there, and the dynamic in that group has been amazing. So Carol Egan is a Cornell University trained executive health coach and founder of Immersion Health, a company that specializes in corporate leadership and wellness trainings. As a member of Forbes Coaches Council, Carol has created and led wellness programs and workshops for C-suite executives at Travels Insurance, Keller Williams, ESPN, JP Morgan, Dana-Farber, GE Capital, and other Fortune 500 brands. Through her programs, Carol has helped hundreds of executives transform their minds and bodies with simple, sustainable strategies for healthy living. After working with her, clients are no longer satisfied with the status quo of low energy, foggy thinking, and dull performance. Instead, they want to create healthy habits that result in increased energy, mental clarity, and emotional balance. Carol is a regular contributor to publications such as the Huffington Post and Forbes magazine, where she writes about nutrition, wellness, and strategies for peak performance. Carol has spent more than 25 years studying with leading authorities around the world on the benefits of clean eating, inner balance, and living with purpose. You can learn more about Carol Egan at carol-egan.com. So, Carol Egan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Jacqueline. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, Carol, you have a very interesting and profound healing journey. And, why don't we touch on a little bit of that first?
Perfect. I was in my mid-20s, and I was very sick. I had a team of doctors. I had with, regular doctors, specialists, urologists, and endocrinologists, and all kinds of ologists. And it was determined that I should take Xanax 3 times a day. The symptoms were real. I had acute anxiety, but it felt off. Something felt off about it. I'm going to say that was the blessing that I received early on, which is why I do the work I do, because some of us maybe just don't heed those inner whispers that something's off, something's wrong. And so I went to the pharmacist with the prescription that I had already picked up that was too strong. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go to work. And I said to the pharmacist, I said, I can't take this. It's too strong for me. And can you make it a smaller dose? And she said, well, I can't do that on my own, but I'll call the doctor's office. I agree. So I could tell she was talking to a receptionist and then talking to a nurse. And then I could tell the doctor got on the phone, and I thought, oh, awesome, he'll understand. And now remember, I'm standing there filled with anxiety. And she stretched the phone over the counter and handed it to me. And I'm very petite. You can't tell I'm very petite, and I was very sick. And he said, I thought you said you trusted me. And I was like, doctor, I do trust you. And he said, look, if you don't take the medication the way I prescribe, it could lead to panic attacks. And you do know what comes after that, yes? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, suicide. And I'm not quite sure. I have tried over and over, but it was almost like a surreal moment, almost this nebulous, surreal moment of fear and conviction rising up at the same time. I mean, I could cry thinking about that moment in remembering how scared I was, but I simultaneously got this conviction. I must find somebody who can help me.
Mm.
And so that moment was, I could give you, 10,000, laundry list of symptoms. And if it seems valuable at some point in the conversation, I will. But that was a decided moment when I started seeking out real answers for true healing.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh, when you say that, it gives me chills just thinking about the fact that the doctor was saying that you could be suicidal because of what you were going through. And that was the shift that really just woke you up and was like, I am not dealing with this.
Well, and let's think about it, Dr. Jacqueline. Mental wellness is growing in concern right now. And I happen to have a personal relationship, a thread from feeling mentally unstable because I had acute anxiety to I help people heal their bodies. So there's a lot to be learned from that moment to now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which of course we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I just can't imagine where you were at before, like how you would have probably dealt with this situation, with this pandemic and being quarantined and all that kind of stuff, if you hadn't done the work you've done so far on yourself.
How I would be dealing with this current situation?
Yeah, how it would be different.
I would say, one of my claim to fame is I didn't just heal my body and alter the course of my life. I sidestepped every single thing that would have happened that happens to quote unquote our poor brothers and sisters that are suffering with anxiety and chronic illness in their body. Because if we accept that the innate intelligence of our body can't heal us, and we go down the path of pharmaceutical medication and diagnoses that don't seem to make sense, But, you know, that gets to be a very dense web because, you know, as we live in two worlds, right? They say that we are a spiritual being, but we're here in physical form.
Mm-hmm.
And but while we're you know, as my teacher teaches me, you know, we're in physical form, but up until the age of 7, the most impressionable years of our lives, we've been taught this is how we do things.
Mm.
But is there another way? Well, of course we do know there is another way. And so there's almost this, I will probably say this several times, there's almost this little sweet spot in between challenging, quote unquote, the dominant paradigm and listening to those still small whispers within.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't just stricken with anxiety, but I was challenging Western medicine. The doctor is saying to me, take this medication. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to take it because I have these real symptoms, but I'm not taking it forever. I'm not living like this. Something's very wrong here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love how you mentioned that still small voice is what led you to your answers. And I feel like that's what led me in this field as well, too. I mean, I had my own things going on. It's maybe not as extreme, although I was losing my hair. That's pretty extreme when you're a lady. But in terms of being on my deathbed or anything like that, I mean, I wasn't like that. But certain people around me, I mean, I've had to kind of nurse back to health as well. And all of this just really pushed me to wanting to know the truth as well. And had I not had that inner small voice speaking to me like you had, I don't think I would ever found these answers. I don't even know if I would have found CellCore or found you. I don't think we'd be doing this podcast today. I mean, it takes a lot to listen to that voice.
I have something right here that I think is worth showing you. And if I thought of it sooner, but of course that's the beauty of these calls. But when I started really taking my health into my own hands, and it wasn't at that moment, those moments were the really digging deep years. Those were the years of really researching and reading and studying everything to try to find answers. But then there was a decided moment where a light went off. I've got to, and the name of this book is called Conscious Eating by Dr. Gabriel Cousens, which you might be familiar with him because I know you studied. And while you and I have a different type we walk spiritually a different way, well, I don't think there's such a thing. I think that when you're spiritually called, you join together, even if you express it differently, is how I would say it.
That's beautifully put.
In the beginning of this book, it brought me to tears. He says, and this is from Genesis 1:29, "See, I give you every seed-bearing plant that is upon all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, they shall be yours for food."
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, that was a really decided moment of, I'm going to take into my body what Creator gave us. It made sense to me. It seemed commonsensical. It seemed like anything else was outside the realm. If nature doesn't create it, right to the conversation you and I had about microgreens, right? If nature didn't create it, then I don't want to put it in my body. And
I love that.
And there was a real decided shift starting there. But the web was something to untangle for sure.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, when we get in these ruts, I mean, there's many levels of healing that need to happen. And that's why we call this the wellness trinity, is because there's that spiritual part, and then there's the emotional and mental part, and then there's the physical part. And sometimes those other two things are parts of the reason why the physical thing is manifesting as well too. And so we have to look at the whole picture. And then even the fact that, like, you've always, it seems like you've always been into figuring out what's going on, like how you're feeding your mind. I see you reading a lot and learning and educating yourself a lot. And I mean, just like reprogramming our mind and what we're thinking, and can really just help us to produce results in our health. I mean, you sat there and read so many books to the point where you're like, this makes so much more sense than what this doctor's telling me.
It's what you're touching on is just paramount, because we will get to environmental toxicity, but we first have to still believe that it's true. Like whatever we're going to talk about, we have to believe what's true. And so what I would offer is to the listeners is that we must come to every new conversation open and willing to explore. I mean, I became a scientist. I became the guinea pig. I became the experimenter. Like I was every phase of the scientific process, and I learned so much about healing. I never studied wellness, Dr. Jacqueline. I never studied illness. I studied wellness. What can we do to vibrate higher? What is life generating? What takes life from us? And so, yeah.
Well, that leads us into the question of how is obstruction holding us back? I mean, you talk about that, and that seems to go hand in hand with what's taking away from us, what's taking away from life.
Well, it's funny. As I say this now, this is a video that I've been wanting to make. I could say to your listeners, and I could say to the wider world, which I will, I'm the last person on the planet to be a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a devotee of being a conduit for the Creator. And so let's back this up now to the question. But we'll come back to that. Michelangelo said that the statue of David lived inside that piece of marble. All he needed to do was to remove what was in the way from us seeing this radiant, gorgeous Adonis. And what I say is, that's exactly the job that we need to do. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. We need to remove what gets in the way from us being our very best selves, so that we can be of service in the world in the ways. And so in my early work, I learned that there are certain foods that leave a residue in the body that cause obstruction. So if residue is left behind, if we're not eliminating fully, then there's going to be a residue left behind. And this toxic waste, depending on how long it's going to be there, is going to harden and calcify. And it's going to start pressing into the tissues of our lining, of our digestive wall. If it's stagnant in there, we all know stagnant rubbish is toxic. Stagnant rubbish, what good could come? How could we have clear thinking if we have stagnant rubbish? Dare I say the harsh word, rotting inside our body. And so the first phase of my work was to learn how to remove this obstruction from the body. And I'm going to say that I've read from everybody. I've studied from everybody. I've experimented with everybody. Then I found my teachers. And what I learned is we have to eat in ways that enter the body and leave the body efficiently. It's the stagnancy that's the first root cause of the breakdown. I mean, colon cancer is one of the leading cancers in this country. So we have to eat in ways that we could call it our quick exit combinations, so that the food can leave the body. And hopefully, although research tells us that most everybody is suffering on some level from digestive breakdown in the digestive processes. And so if there's a breakdown in the digestive processes, how can we think that what we're eating, we're getting? How can we think that we're getting the vitality, not just the nutrients and the minerals and the enzymes, but the life force energy, the vital energy? If the food is live, how can we even make the assumption that we're getting that? So I learned the hard way. And, you know, I don't believe in holding back at this point. And so I beg the pardon of the listener. But there was a point where my digestive processes were so broken down that I went to the bathroom and there were whole capsules floating in the toilet that my body could not even break down those capsules, that I actually ingested them and eliminated them fully intact.
Wow.
And so, and we know, I mean, one of the leading over-the-counter medications is laxatives. This is no joke. We got to get to this, which of course you and I are very in-depthly and conscientiously with our partnership with CellCore. So now we start eating properly. Well, eating in a particular way, but we want to eat high vibrational foods and foods that are high in water content, because it's so dehydrated in there. All of this, if we have waste matter clogging us and we keep adding food in, and foods that leave residue, processed foods, or even hard to digest foods, if there's a backup on the colon wall, then we're not just talking about mucoid plaque, we're talking about literal waste matter left behind. And then we keep eating, it's just going to keep building up. And this is where, you know, my number one recommendation, which I'm giving away, you know, one of my tips for later, but we'll revisit it, is green juice. The magic, the reason I'm a proponent of green juice is not this bougie thing going out in the world. Oh, I'm a green juice drinker. No, it has nothing to do with cool or status or anything like that. It has to do with, it is literally a valuable tool, because if you imagine, okay, we all don't have a garden like you do, but you imagine that I come back from the grocery store with all this fresh produce and I make fresh juice. It still has the energy from the sun and from the earth and from the air. It's still full of life force energy. So it's magnetic. So it's going to pull off the colon wall. A lot of this waste matter. It's going to, you know, as you know, my teacher describes it, scrubbing bubbles. It's like scrubbing bubbles. I call it like a magnet. It pulls waste out. And
well, I just think that's really awesome how you explain that. I mean, it gives people such a deep visual picture of what is going on in our gut if we're not eating healthy, and if it's sitting there and rotting, basically, right? I mean, it gets stuck to the walls, like you said. We get this mucoid plaque. How do we expect to be able to digest anything else that comes in, including things like supplements that should be easier to digest, right?
So now, Dr. Jacqueline, may I continue now?
Yeah.
So now let's make sure that we attend to what we wanted to attend to, because I could have this conversation for days. Like I get high on this conversation.
Me too. So we're on the same page.
So now you take a look at what I call the impact of the modern lifestyle on the farming practices and the what we're reaping from these. You know, we're getting produce that is affected by the environmental toxicity in the world. Like when the world was created, it didn't look like it looks today. And so there's an impact of all sorts of things in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, in the foods we take in, that they have environmental toxins that they're finding in umbilical cords of babies, not simply just the human body. And so now we're staying on the track of Michelangelo, right? We're staying on the track of removing what doesn't belong in the human body. I could drink green juice all day long. I could eat salads all day long, and guess what? I do. I've defied odds with those tools. And then one day, about 3 years ago, I met a man through his work named Dr. Todd Watts, the founder of CellCore Biosciences. I could cry saying it.
Mm-hmm. I feel the same, like as he said his name, I feel the same way. I met him last year, and it's just been this a divine appointment that has just blessings keep unfolding and unfolding.
When I met him through his work, metaphorically, it was like a lightning bolt hit me. And I learned how to run the bases really well for years. And I knew I was going to get home with him. And what I learned from him initially was, because when I met Dr. Watts, it was at the very beginning, the very initial beginnings of CellCore, when they're still freaking putting pills, they're packaging pills themselves and putting the product in the pills. When I first met him, the big product was Para-1. Para-1 is known to be, it's an Ayurvedic herb that gelatinizes when it opens inside the human body. As you know, I'm telling this to the viewers, you know this, it gelatinizes. But see, I'm taking a step too fast. What Dr. Watts said was, if you have a pulse, you have parasites. And I was like, holy, you freaking know what? Now you think about the work that I've been doing.
Yeah.
I've been studying yeast, mold, fungus, rogue bacteria, and pathogen for years. But I never brought it to, I didn't conceptualize parasites. And I was like, holy smokes. And so I'll go back to where I started, the Para-1. Boom, I was hook, line, and sunk. I could own 3 homes with the amount of money I've invested to save my health.
Mm.
And so anything that CellCore charges is not saving. You're not just investing in healing your body. You're investing in circumventing, like me, 30 years of looking for an answer. 30 years of illness in my body, screwing with my mental and emotional well-being, screwing with my energy levels. You know, this is the work that we do. This is not about selling a freaking protocol. My gosh, we're talking about reclaiming the whole quality of a life.
Oh my gosh, it's exactly what it is. I had just done a podcast with one of the people in the warehouse, and you know, when I was posting it on my social media, all I can think about is I work for a company that saves lives.
That's right.
And that's really what it is. It's saving lives, and it's giving you your life back, and giving you maybe even a life that you didn't even realize you could have. I mean, some people are born with this. Some people from a very young age never even really experience what it really feels like to feel good in their body. So it's incredible.
And so now I learn about parasites. And I start doing the deep, heavy lifting work. And I'm about 5'3". I weigh about 105 pounds. I'm pretty small. And I bet you I released a bucket full of parasites from my colon. Yeah, I get it. And I'm going to share this post, so I know who I'm talking to. It makes me cry.
They need to know, because so many people have them, like you said.
But it makes me cry because I've been a teacher of health and well-being, and I released something that looked like a 5-foot earthworm from my holy temple. And so let's not get caught up in that because there's so much more to get to. And so then with the docs, I'm discovering all along, well, how could this be? How can they survive inside? Like how they were taking over my well-being. No matter how much I've learned over my life, I could probably be an Einstein with the amount of reading and learning I've done, but how much could I retain with this level of illness in my body? Mm-hmm. So what I learned through CellCore is the parasites can take over and thrive. They won't. There's a book, folks, called Your Brain on Parasites. I highly recommend it.
Wow.
The parasites won't take you over so much that you'll die, because they need you to survive. They need you alive to survive. But there's things that create, so you could go and do this little parasite cleanse. I've done them. They didn't do anything like what we're talking about, right, with CellCore. So what I learned is I used to get in my cecum area a lifting that it felt like a child. I mean, I'm a mother. I know what it's like for a child's foot to come through the belly. It felt like a child's foot coming through my belly. I'd get this lifting. And for the longest time, I thought, that just must be waste matter. I've got to get that waste matter out. And so, but no, that was the parasites in my colon. And so what I discovered is heavy metals from the environment that we have unwittingly, we're going to take them in. They come into our body in every way that we move in the world. The parasites live inside nests that are surrounded by heavy metals. The immune system won't go near there, won't go near the heavy metals. And so then you have these parasites who are inside our human body, our body temple, and they're eating our tissues, and they're pooping their waste, and they're holding yeast, mold, and fungus, and rogue bacteria with viruses. So there's a science to why these parasites can survive. And I'm not Dr. Watts, but I am me, and I know enough to say we have to. This is the brilliance of CellCore, and the conversation is starting to turn like a sales call for CellCore. But folks, pay attention. It's not. It really is important. Doing a parasite cleanse alone is not going to do a clean sweep of the body. So now CellCore has, I mean, I could go so many places. CellCore has this Mimosa Pudica that gelatinizes. And when it gets on the colon wall, it literally suffocates those parasites. Mm. And so when we kill parasites, they're going to release all their stuff. Mm. Whatever they've been living on, whatever exists inside them, viruses, radiation, heavy metals, chemicals, yeast, mold, fungus, like chronic candida. There's people that have tried forever to get rid of candida. Mm-hmm. You can't if you don't get rid of the parasites. Yep. And you can't permanently get rid of the parasites if you don't get rid of the heavy metals.
Yep. Thank you.
And so now I'm doing all of this work and I'm feeling benefit, energetically feeling benefit. And I take on, I'm going to try to get a thyroid medication. 30 years ago, I had the doctor, the suicide doctor.
Oh my gosh. That's what it sounds like.
He said that I have to take thyroid medication, that I had hypothyroidism, and if I didn't, blah, 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 blah. And so I as I said, I was sick, very sickly. I didn't have the wherewithal to go up against a doctor's recommendation. I did on the anxiety medication, but I didn't on the thyroid at that time. And so somewhere in midstream with all of this CellCore stuff, I said, okay, first, I knew that the first thing I needed to do was to stop taking pharmaceutical thyroid medication. So that's what I did. I went off of synthetically made pharmaceutical grade thyroid medication, and I gave myself a year to transition to a more natural. It's Armour thyroid. It's animal glandular, and I create gratefulness for that every day. I don't eat animal protein, so that's just a sacred gift to me for now. But here's the funny story. I'm stabilized on the Armour thyroid for a significant amount of time. I start taking CellCore's iodine formulation. Now, I've been taking Nascent Iodine for years, nothing, zilcho. CellCore's is formulated with 95% of what their other products are made with, and that is biocarbons, fulvic and humic acids. And because fulvic acids are binders, what in that particular format, the iodine that I was taking, the fulvic and humic acids would go in and bind to the halogens in my thyroid so that the iodine could slip in. I was going to my doctor every month now because now my TS, all of my levels were changing with every visit. And he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I was almost ready to go off thyroid medication. After 30 years, it's almost a near impossibility. My body stopped producing it because I was taking this medication. So for me to get down to 30 micrograms of Armour thyroid, that's very low. And I was ready to move off of it. And I started taking ViRadChem. And ViRadChem, this is an important story. ViRadChem triggered a very acute symptom I had before I started all of this. And I don't know what it was really called, but the doctors told me it was called labyrinthitis. I was living in Boston, and I would get these, what I would call spells. And when it would hit, I would get an acute, crashing, violent vertigo. And then I would pass out. And I would literally be unable to speak anywhere from one day to a week. I mean, my mother would come and care for me. I started taking the ViRadChem and I started getting that symptom. So now I'm touching on this virus. Now I'm hitting deeper. Now, most people would say, "Oh my God, I can't take that. It's not good." When you get into the self-healing game, you get that when you touch something, it's like, I don't have a good off the top of my head analogy, but it was a sign to me that I was touching something that I needed to remove. It didn't like it, so back off, or I'm touching on this virus. And may I say, residue from early vaccinations as a child. And so I pulled way back. I actually conferred directly with Dr. Watts on this. I pulled back to literally 1/8 of a teaspoon once a day. And I was able to handle it. And I slowly and methodically and patiently and incrementally increased it. And now I take an aggressive dose of 2 capsules twice a day, and I'm good.
That's awesome. So you have, you just told me recently that you found out some new news about what's going on. I mean, because this is literally like peeling layers of the onion is like what I like to explain. And you've done a lot of the gut scrubbing with the Para 1. You've done a lot of the drainage. You got rid of some big parasites. You've been working on these viruses, radiation, and chemicals. And most people are probably like, okay, this lady's been doing this for so long. She's obviously very educated and she knows her stuff. And there comes a point sometimes, even at that, where sometimes we can feel like we've made so much progress and yet there's still more. And you were there, right?
So I'm an anti-supplement person. Let's just put that on the table. There was a point in my healing journey that I looked at my palm filled with what was costing me $1,000 a month. And if I took it, I felt better. And if I didn't take it, I didn't. And I had a decided moment where I said, I'm all done. There's something terribly wrong. That's important to say because I'm a huge proponent of CellCore. I'm sharing my business hours with promoting CellCore. And so this is a really important add-on too. So now we've been addressing biofilm and toxic waste matter and yeast, mold, and fungus in the body with all of the early phases of CellCore protocol. I'm getting to viruses and radiation and chemicals in my body with the foods I eat, absolutely, and with CellCore's protocol. And here I am again, and I'm thinking, I'm missing something. So that's a gift of when you start listening. This is the gift. This is the blessing and the curse. As human beings with free will, it is our responsibility to learn to listen to our body. Mm-hmm. And that's a gift of mine because I've been listening to it for so long. And most recently, I thought something's wrong. And so I went to see my healer in Massachusetts, who I actually turned on to CellCore, and he's like off the charts with it now. Like, you know, the results he's creating with his clients or his patients are off the charts again, you know, and he is highly trained in all types of energy work, but muscle testing being one of them. And so he had CellCore's test kit and muscle tested, and he found all the gates that I opened. You know, I've really done, you know, life-changing work on my gut, which had to happen. But when the gut, you know, CellCore teaches this so well, when the gut is so backed up for so long, the funnel is the next line that's going to get hit is the liver and the kidneys, and then the lymphatic system, of course, the tissues, the cells. So I went to see Peter, and he said, it was almost like the hardest reading. And then it just poured out all of the evidence that I was showing signs of always have. I mean, my palms were always yellow. I would get yellow in my eyes, yellow in my skin. You know, it's just toxic no matter what I did. He found that I'm loaded with systemic. See, this is what happens when you have these big bigger tapeworms or bigger roundworms in the body. It doesn't mean that you're not getting you clear that, but they're systemic parasites that travel. And and I have them. He tested my sinus passages. He tested my brain. He tested my lungs because this is what was showing up. And so I got, a new protocol. He also found something that I've never been tested positive for. And he found Lyme. He found Lyme disease. Now, I'm not remotely concerned. I'm not remotely scared about that. I feel better and better every day. And I'm doing some of the deepest detoxing I've ever done right now. So I started taking their formulation called Para-3, which is for systemic parasites, the microscopic parasites that are inside cells and can travel. I'm eliminating liver flukes the size of a silver dollar. So,
Wow.
so what that's showing, Dr. Jacqueline, is how could I detox effectively if my liver is all congested with liver flukes? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing that I intuitively felt a hit just now that's so important to say to the viewers. I've been a green juice slugger and a salad twice a day eater, an intermittent faster, a yoga practitioner, a gym enthusiast, outside, like I live a pure, clean life. If that's happening to me, don't think, wow, she's really sick. I highly recommend you look in the mirror and see where you could be looking to help yourself. I needed to say
Yes, Carol, I am so excited that you just said that because, it goes back to that idea that people can eat healthy. They can think that they are quote unquote healthy because they live a healthy lifestyle, and yet they still are sick. And, and when we say sick, we're talking about this stuff. We're talking about, parasites, fungus, candida, mold, environmental toxicity, which can include radiation and chemicals. And, we are all bombarded by this stuff. I'm only 33 right now as we're doing this recording. And I've dealt with my own issues of fatigue and probably some similar things that you've dealt with a thyroid. And even though it hasn't been diagnosed, I knew something was wrong. My hair was falling out, like I had mentioned. That's a sign that the thyroid could be off. My liver was all congested. I passed tons of parasites myself and gallstones. I stopped counting how many thousands of gallstones I passed. I was like, how does this keep happening? But a lot of times that goes hand in hand with the parasites. And this is something that I should say nobody, because we're talking about it. And CellCore obviously is very much talking about it, but not enough of the world knows about this, I should say. And this is why we're like CellCore evangelists, because we know that there's something going on and needs to be addressed if people really want to get to the root cause of their health issues. And there's amazing things that can be done with what we're doing here and what we have to offer to the world. And I'm sure there's other great things going on. But like you, I've never found anything else like CellCore that does the job like this does. And for those of you that are listening, I had mentioned this in my intro, but Para-1 is this product right here. And Carol was talking about that. It's the Mimosa Pudica seed and the one that gets gelatinous. And it's the one for the bigger parasites. It's the gut scrubber. So the one she was talking about literally pulls the parasites off your colon. And then Para-3, and there is a Para-2. We didn't get into that today, but that's important as well to know at some point. But Para-3 is when we dive into the more systemic ones that she was talking about, the littler ones that can live all around your body. And it is important to address the bigger ones first. The low-hanging fruit is what they call it, because if you start removing all these other smaller things in the body from your tissues and your organs, you're not going to feel very good if you have the obstruction, like what we were talking about in the beginning. So you just so beautifully tied that whole picture together.
So Dr. Jacqueline, let me say this as we're nearing the end of this call. There's a formula. And this is why I was able to embrace CellCore. A formula I learned of before I came to CellCore. And it's called Awaken and Release. So there's a lot of people out in the world teaching detoxification. But if we don't release what we wake up, then it's only a potential cleanse. It's not a detoxification. It's like going into the kitchen and taking the broom and sweeping the dirt from the middle of the room to the corners, but you never fully removed what doesn't belong in the human body. And I tell you, I stand on the shoulders of some of the oldest practitioners. They're not even alive. And then there's my teacher, I have two, a few that I hold very dear in this work, next to Dr. Watts. But it's different work, but the answer's still the same. We have to awaken it and we have to release it. If we don't release, then it's only been a potential detoxification.
And so to go along with your analogy, it's basically you might awaken something in a certain part of your body and it might move somewhere else, correct?
Correct.
Until it gets fully out. And this is why the elimination, like you said, the drainage funnel makes sure your colon, your liver, and your lymphatic and all those systems are moving so that you can get rid of those parasites and other things that are in the body causing obstruction.
Well, we're all one unit. We're not that old song. My foot bone's connected to my ankle bone. My ankle bone's connected to my knee bone. That kind of a thing, right? Like everything is interconnected. And it's inherent. It's common sense. If this is filled with toxic waste, then the liver and the kidneys are going to take a heavy hit because they're responsible for cleansing our body. And if that takes a heavy hit like I have, I'm doing things and taking things, the lymphatic supplement I'm taking in high doses, and I'm rebounding to help cleanse the lymphatic system. And but again, I'm gonna always and forever. It's not something that I learned in the past 3 years. It's something I've learned over 30 years, that we have to awaken it and we have to release it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Carol, what are 1 to 3 takeaways that people can get right now that they can go home and they can just start doing some of the things that you said?
Number 1, so easy, especially after this conversation. Number 1 is green juice. Drink anywhere from 8 to 32 ounces of green juice a day. Fresh pressed juice. Invest in a juicer. It's one of the best investments for your health that you can do. Number 2, some people will say, do home enemas. I say, find a good hydrocolonic therapist in your area, a gravity hydrocolonic therapist in your area. That's number 2. So now you're awakening, now you're releasing. Let me go back to awaken. Awaken, green juice, green smoothie, green salad, every single day. If you have a green juice, a green smoothie, and a green salad every single day, there's not going to be a lot of room left to eat all kinds of crap. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that'll help take over. Let's, green juice, colonic therapy, and then the final one, it's easy. Get on the CellCore protocol.
Amen to that one.
and you don't, because see, if you go to CellCore, you go to Dr. Jacqueline's website, you go to CellCore and you go to buy this product, you're going to say, wow, for a whole year, that's going to cost me a lot of money. Well, you could do the math. For 30 years, I tried to heal myself fully. I'm here, girls, folks. I'm here. But it took me 30 years to get here. And what I'm recommending now, I know makes a difference. It's basic common sense. And the ingredients of their formulations are of the highest. Not just highest ingredients, but have you ever heard the analogy? You don't want to cooking your food who's angry. because then your food is going to be infused with their anger. CellCore Biosciences are literally walking their faith. And although, again, it may be different than mine, they're faith walkers. Like and I don't mean this in a religious way, although may they be are, but they're committed to helping people. Their product and formulations are infused with a higher calling.
I completely agree. I mean, we've been working with them for a few months, and every person that they hire, it seems like they all have this special, it's like love. There's so much love in them. And then there's so much of this mission that's just, I mean, we all have this mission. We were all almost called to this so that we can really spread it and see more people get to the root of their health issues. And it's so much more than just taking supplements. Like you said, it's really regaining your life, living life to the fullest, and being able to live your mission on this earth. I mean, we were all called to a greater purpose. And, you know, it's so beautiful to be a part of a company that's doing. And I'm so happy that you came on the show and you shared the intricacies of how this is personally affected your life. Like, you're not just a business development sales manager with us for no reason. I mean, you are a walking testimony that this has changed your life. And the thing with this is also, you say you've been dealing with this for 30 years, right? The idea of CellCore is that it doesn't have to take that long, right? Like, they've really thought this process out so that it can be a very minute fraction of that whole thing. Dr. Todd Watts, he was ill for over 10 years, I believe. Yes. And he kept pressing on for answers and pressing on for answers. And when you meet that man, he radiates this enthusiasm and this joy and love for the world that he wants to share. And I feel like a lot of it is because he went through his healing journey, and he regained his energy and his life back. And that's where he's coming from. That's where Carol seems like she's coming from. And even myself and the family members and people I've worked with, you know, it's, I can't even begin to explain, you know, brings a tear to my eye just thinking about how this profoundly changes people's lives. So thank you so much, Carol, for sharing your story.
Oh, it was a good vehicle today, right? To really highlight the effort required, and maybe for somebody else not. I can say this: if somebody were to take on the protocol, they might not have to go through what I went through. And I wasn't suffering the whole step of the way, every step of the way. Early on, I really suffered. You know, I was losing my fun girl, young girl sass. I was losing my zest for life and my big fun spirit. And don't underestimate what that could do to human life. Like, I've had to do a lot of work to counter that as well. That life has to be hard. It doesn't. Not with this healing game. You know, again, for me, it's a threefold effort in removing what doesn't belong in the human body. For you to go and take that chisel like Michelangelo did, you're going to want to take on a healing diet. The statistics of chronic disease at the World Health Organization or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention tell us we're sick. The human frame is not holding up any longer. We've got to do something. And taking a formulation alone is not going to do it. And fortunately, CellCore doesn't teach a diet, because we're all going to come to this from a different angle. And my angle is there's a healing diet that's essential. And then we have to help the body remove what is so deeply embedded and backed up. That, don't ever underestimate the hydrocolonic therapy.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And everything you said about the diet, I'm with you on that as well too. Those green juices, those salads, the green smoothie. I have my green smoothie actually here that I started before we got into this, with my sprouts in there, or microgreens and all kinds of other goodies. So Carol, it's been such a pleasure. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you if they'd love to pick your brain a little bit more, or even possibly work with you?
Sure. So my website is simply Carol, CAROL -EGAN.com.
Okay, perfect. And you were doing this Immune Strong Facebook group. Are you still having that available for people? Can you still listen to the recordings?
Well, that group will be open for a while. So if they just type into the search bar on Facebook, Immune Strong, on a page, because it's a page or a group, it's a group. It's a group. Type in Immune Strong and look for it in a group. And there's lots of other little ones, but mine is just Immune Strong. And at some point, I'll move those talks over to my website or to YouTube, but for now, they're still in the group. And so there was amazing speakers that came to support a community of almost 400 people in a mind, body, spirit effort. There's all different types of approaches, and it's a very holistic, because that's the way I teach.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Mind, body, spirit. All right, listeners. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we will be back with more incredible episodes like this one. And I appreciate you guys listening every time. It really just touches my heart. And as we mentioned in the show, it's such a blessing to be able to help people find the root to their health issues. And we've been finding them as we go along, it seems like, and we're just excited to spread the message. So thanks again for tuning in. And I'm Dr. Jacqueline. I'm here so you know. My Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide is now available on thewellnesstrinity.com. You'll learn how to grow broccoli microgreens, the ingredients I put in my green juice, and super nutritious supplements you can add to enhance your immune system. Again, go to thewellnesstrinity.com and you'll receive your free Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Trinity podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more wellness tips to help you achieve optimal health. Don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.